So recording has commenced. Well, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to Going Pro. We've got new enrollments and all kinds of exciting things going on. I've been sending out a whole batch of emails. I've kind of over-emailed, but I wanted to make sure the link for the video was in there, and I wanted to make sure that, everybody got all the details that they needed. And two new people who have enrolled are Paul Wilson out of Albuquerque, who's a realtor and former president of the State Association of Realtors there, also local association president in Albuquerque. So he's with eXp Realtors. He's also a speaker, and I met him at the Albuquerque meeting. And he's a licensed, what does he call it? Why is his brand, and there's a determining your why, and he's a licensed specialist in that, and also he's a 24-year Marine, and he's got his PhD. So pretty impressive guy, Paul Wilson. And then Steve Thomas has joined us, and Steve is coming. Hey, Jason. Steve is coming on board as part of the Going Pro, and Steve's amazing. I mean, amazing on the level of Og Mandino and Earl Nightingale. So I'll let him tell his own story when the time comes. But there's Paul Wilson coming in. All right. Jason, good to see you. How's it going? Jason. I don't know if Jason's hearing me yet. No, he's still plugging in. Hey, Paul. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Jim. Yes, and it's good to be here and seeing all the smiley faces.
Yeah, we've got some more that'll be ambling in, I'm sure, in the next couple of minutes. But I'd like you to meet Lisa Marie David. Lisa is a longtime protege and colleague of mine. She's a licensed Zig Ziglar trainer, and among other things. And she has been sort of the virtual host for Going Pro for quite some time now. And she's in Memphis. And then we've got Trigger, which is Rich Bontrager, and you can see Trigger there. He's in the Washington, D.C. area, and a specialist in podcasting, first of all, and then YouTube and a number of other specialties. And we'll go into more detail on that. And Jason Tharp is the guy who busts impossibles. A remarkable individual, the champion of hope. And Jason's he's in Ohio. Where? Columbus?
Columbus, yeah.
Columbus, Ohio. And Paul Wilson's in Albuquerque. And Paul's specialty, as I was mentioning to Trigger and to Lisa, is he's a longtime realtor, former president of the State Association there in New Mexico. He's also a 24-year Marine, and he's a guy who helps you determine your why. And Robin Kriesman just joined us. Robin's down in the San Antonio area in Spring Branch. And Robin is not only a musician and an author and a TV producer, but a professional entertainer and a number of other things. And Brian Orton is up in Portland, or near Portland now. Where would you say it is, Brian? It's in Oregon, but what's the new town name?
I would say Central Oregon.
Okay, Central Oregon. And he's almost off the grid. He and Janelle are outside the Metroplex now. Hey, Robin, good to see your smiling face.
Hi, guys. Good to see you. Sorry I'm late.
And so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. We'll have some folks dropping in on Steve Thomas is going to come in, and some other folks have said yes, that they will be here. The theme for today kind of goes with this. I'm going to do a screen share with this slide that comes from Janelle. And Janelle produced, just a second, I'll show it to you. Gotta get.
I
a
love how cluttered
things
his
out of the way.
desktop is.
Here
I
it is.
love it.
There it is. See that? A system is to a business as a habit is to a person. That's the main theme for today. And I want to show you what Janelle has created for me. She took my quotes and a bunch of my photos and created these memes like Brian was doing before Janelle got on the case. And so this one you can see, I think you can see it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to have great success first, you must be a great person. And then I'll see if I can just scroll through these. Let's see, just a second. Do a quick look and see if that'll do, if it'll scroll. Yeah, here it is. See there, bring sunshine wherever you go, show people reasons to believe in themselves. Don't seek to feel better, seek to be better. Carrying a grudge is like taking poison and expecting the other guy to get sick. And so you can see the variety in these and the creative formatting. And it's just a really cool assembly of assets. And by the way, Lisa, this should be perfect for what you and Michael Butler are doing with the quote book. So you can see it just goes on and on and on. And there were a number of them that she created like that, but just such a cool treatment of those quotes. And of course, you're welcome to take these ideas and morph them into your own styles and do what you need to do with that. And I see we've got my Udly AI and Jason's Autopilot AI, both eavesdropping on the meeting, and in the chat box, they have said, we are here. So
I have no
AI.
clue why that keeps
Yeah.
showing up
welcome.
at all. Like I don't know why.
Mine does the same thing, so don't worry about it. Well, let me throw it open first for any top of mind questions or issues that you want to make sure we focus on today. Four, five, six. Okay, I'm jumping back in. Trigger.
No, I just want to say,
But
Robbins.
I want to throw it to you because you've
Oh.
got a special that I took advantage of. And I want the others to know about it because what he's doing is offering some of his services at a really low entry point. So if any of you have a need for what he's doing or know some folks that do, by all means, spread the word. So what was it you put together, Rich?
So obviously I work with media, with Rock Stage Media, and I help people shine on camera, shine on stage, but you're producing YouTube videos, YouTube content. And I've seen a trend of chaotic YouTube channels. We'll just say it that way. They're not presented in a compelling media way. And Jim's, if you want to go look at Jim's, that's a great example.
Poster child for how to do it poorly. Yeah.
He's got plenty of videos, but there's no organization, there's no pop, no sizzle. And I've got a technique that does it. So I am offering a free review of your YouTube channels. 15-minute free call. We walk through it a little bit. I can give you some ideas. And then if you want the services, I'm actually going into Jim's channel and I am helping him with pop and sizzle. I'm actually lining it up, recreating it, doing thumbnails, doing all the hashtags. I'm literally going to remake over his entire channel. Lisa Marie, I'm going to put her on the slate here. She doesn't have a channel yet, but we've done a review. We've talked a little bit, and I'm going to help her begin to bake out her brand new channel, but she has dreams for more video content. So I'm going to drop this in the chat. It's completely free. There's no pressure, but Jim and I were talking about this could be an added bonus that we could present to you for your time and energy and what you do and what you want to do for your future. So take it. It's a gift from Jim and I to you.
Cool. Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. All right. Robin, bring us up to date. How are you doing?
Well, I have just launched finally the Everyday Rockstar. Be the one who people want to work with, trust, buy from, and tell others about. It's an email campaign that's offering, it's a 5-5-5-5 promotion. 5 slots to be booked in 5 days for $5,000 instead of $12,000 and to be delivered within 5 weeks. It's a local promotion to San Antonio and Austin companies. Right now, it's just the San Antonio group.
Mhm.
So I started on this Tuesday. There's been 3 emails that have gone out to group 1. I've split them in half and then made the, I didn't A/B the actual titles in a program. I'm doing it kind of manually. So I've got 2 versions of emails going out with 2 different titles, 2 different, setups and everything. And right now my open ratio is, these are all cold emails. These are, I've just searched online looking for specific companies in my niche to deliver this program on site. It's an interruption. They don't have anything planned. I'm actually just reaching out to their HR directors, VPs, training directors, and trying to offer this program for me to come to them, deliver this in a pre-launch, because going national to my clients in 2 months, going national stage in October, and to get it for a discount. And that's kind of the idea. And then offering a consultation with them or a Q&A afterwards. So in one sense, it's a great deal, but if they have no perspective or no understanding, no reason why, it's like, this is spam, so it's on that borderline.
Yeah.
But there's 60 people that have gone out to, there's a 50% open rate right now. And there's, there's two groups of 18 and 17 and 50% open rate. And so that's 11 or so. And then I've got 9 and 11, and I've got 5 and 7 different clicks. So the rates are high, but the numbers are low, of course.
So
And so I'm just waiting to actually go ahead.
Come through directly with a request or a live?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. And how
Not
many
yet.
go out to?
So there's 35 total.
Okay.
And there are directors of training, mostly vice presidents, general managers. There's automotive, restaurant groups, hospitality, hotel groups, civic groups, real estate, and then there's some assisted living retirement homes.
Okay. So you got a
That's
very
a different model because
tight and small group, but the fact that they opened them is encouraging. Now, are
Yeah.
you going to be following up with phone calls or emails or anything to take it to the next
Yeah.
level?
Yeah, so there's multiple emails. It's a sequence. So the first group got the third email today, and their program ends on Monday. And so that's this afternoon and Monday, I'll be calling them. Then the other group ends on Wednesday. So yeah, so there's a sequence of ultimately of 4 emails in 5 days. I skipped one day not to be so, stupid, but we'll see if it works. I mean, it's a gamble. It's a stretch. It's out of the blue.
Good.
So
I look
if they
forward-
get to the website, which I've done a private website for them, that's got a specific video for them talking about exactly what the program is, what the offer is, some of my time on stage and large stages.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there's an international keynote speaker that could come to their local office. Is that enough of a wow? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Something I would recommend is that you send a sample of what you're sending out to us so that we can
Okay.
give you feedback individually on it.
I'll
And
do
we
it
say,
as soon as
"Hey,
we
that's
finish.
cool." And that we may end up passing it along to somebody who bites. But we're happy to be supportive to you.
I'll send it as soon as we finish.
You got it. Okay. Hey, Jason.
Well, let me say this real quickly. You can go to the website right now, and I'll just give you the URL if you want to.
Okay. Well, I think
you don't
right
have to-
now I want to stay focused on this. And
I don't mean for us you to do it, but if you want to write down the
okay.
URL.
Yeah.
So it's Robin Creasman, which is ROBINCreasman.com/EDRS. That stands for Everyday Rockstar. EDRS/preview.
/hyphen.
RobinCreasman.com/EDRS. Okay, that's a good idea.
That's much better. Yeah. Whew. Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of like two all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. You know, and that's the
All
first
right.
said that in 20 years. But once you get it in there, it's stuck. Yep.
Yep.
So I was calling on Jason just a second ago. Jason, bring us up to speed on what's been going on.
Let's see. Trying to figure out where to start. So on Monday I'll launch my newsletter, which is called the Power Up Post. On 11/11 we are launching the new company, which is called Beyond Hope Project. So the easiest way to kind of think about what Beyond Hope Project is it's like kind of life, live strong minus the cancer element, even though I'm tied with that, I get, but it's about helping people find their if they're at the bottom, to feel like, you know, hope and a starting point. So I'm working with a friend of mine who's owns an ad agency. My background is in brand development, so you know, a lot of that's kind of my wheelhouse in there. The Power Up Project
Quick suggestion.
Yeah.
When you say hope, make sure you really articulate that word
Okay.
clearly, because if you say, you know, champion of hope, and you kind of drop your inflection or whatever, it doesn't stick with people.
Okay.
And since that is the essence of Jason in a brand sense, then just make sure that that always pops.
Absolutely.
It's kind of
Cool.
like on that video you sent me where at the first of it, you're saying, I break impossibles.
Yeah.
Well, impossibles, if you weren't ready for that word, and you're only 15 seconds into the video, it's not going to lead, it's not going to grab you and take
Right.
you to the next step. But if you really, like we were talking about, have the word impossible, impossible, impossible on the screen, it goes, and then you
Yeah.
come through, they get it fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually already talked about it. We're going to get, I think what we're going to do is get impossible in blocks of ice. And I'm just going to beat the shit out of it with the bat and start it out that way.
The bat right there behind you.
Right, man. But yeah, and you know, really kind of focus on the brand build. So like my stuff is like really focused on trying to in terms of how the keynote stuff will feed it. It's like kind of being the spokesman for Beyond Hope Project, which will also include all of my publishing with the books and all that stuff like that, which will down the road include, you know, other authors and what. So really kind of taking the time to build a catalog, so to speak, of like this umbrella brand, and inside of it will be sub pillars that kind of funnel in each one of those things. That will, you know, build out to the email list, will build out. So really the focus now is building up to 11/11 launch of that, getting on lots of podcasts. I just hired like a virtual assistant to start booking podcasts for me to try to get on those things and start getting that information out. The Power Up Project podcast, if you guys haven't listened to that yet, it's simple, my name on the screen.com. You can go there and click on podcasts, and you can check out my podcast there. It's going really well. We're getting really great feedback from that. I think I'm booked with guests out until, I think I looked the other day, I was like, holy cow, I think it's April, May of next year. So it's I'm like, oh, okay. So we do 4, I record 4 a day. So it's been pretty crazy. And yeah, we do it every third Wednesday, but I do 4. Yeah. And I do a lot of like in betweens. I just tell my guys like hit record, and I drop in like little quick, like 1-minute videos and stuff like that. So it's just, you know, full speed ahead, trying to get all kinds of as much content as I can. So yeah, it's right now, it's really, I got to tell you guys, I had, you mentioned Daniel Pope to me. You connected me with him, and I had a conversation with him yesterday, and I would encourage anybody to reach out to this guy, because I have never had a more honest conversation with somebody. I mean, Daniel just straight up told me, like, this will blow your mind. He would not take my money, and he won't work with me because he says, I'm fooling myself if I don't realize that I already know what I have, and I'm just not doing it. He said, I'm trying to climb the mountain, but I'm not willing to take the first step. So if you want an honest, straight up guy, he is, and he's 28, which, you know,
Yeah.
he's a
And
very,
Wow.
yeah,
he's
yeah.
in Tennessee and he's part of our team, Paul. So this is a guy named Daniel Pope, and Daniel Pope and Jacob Eliason, Jacob's in Memphis. They own a company called Be Known Agency. And so they're all about getting yourself known and visible and connected with people online. And they're super good at what they do. They introduced me to Go High Level. GoHighLevel.com is the matrix that I use behind all of my technology now. It's similar in many ways to Infusionsoft and some of those major packages like that, but it's simpler to use. And it replaced my Calendly or Schedule Once, which I used to use for a calendar. It's got one built into it. And so my URL for my calendar now is simply, I used a shortened link for it, bit.ly/call Cathcart. Call Cathcart. I mean, and you don't even have to have .coms and all the other things in there, you know, so that's built into it. Another thing built into it is what I used to use MailChimp to do, which is, you know, let me create a document and do all kinds of mailings and build my email. Well, that's built into Go High Level. Another thing that's built into it is Kajabi, kind of a program where I can upload entire courses. And I've got courses in there that some of you are subscribed to, and they're available to all of you. Let's see, what else is in it? I don't know. It's pipeline funnels, you know, all that kind of thing. If you choose to use it, you don't have to. It's got Stripe pay process built into it. And so you can put in a product or a service and then go over to your pricing and identify the way that's laid out, and then send somebody a invoice or a link or whatever, and they just click through and pay, and it all happens. You can attach products, books, you know. So Go High Level, yay. And Daniel Pope is an expert in Go High Level. And Lisa and I have used Ken Walls. Ken Walls did our digital business card, which is phenomenal. And you can do that with lots of people, but the one with Ken has more nuances to it than any I've seen. And he uses Go High Level. So that was my first exposure to that. So if you're shopping for something like that, check them out. And you can use me as a link for that, or Daniel Pope, and we get credit for having referred somebody. Let me flip over to our newest face on the screen here, Paul. Paul Wilson is he's the calm, wise face in the room when I was giving a speech the other day in New Mexico to NSA. And at the end, he said, yeah, let's talk. I'd like to continue this more. Paul and I are about the same age, and both of us very much still actively engaged in our careers. And Paul's got 2 or 3 careers going. But one of the things that fascinates me about what Paul does is someone can say to him in this one little niche, so what do you do? He says, and I'm paraphrasing Paul, I help people figure out their why. Everybody has a why, a reason behind what they're doing. And you can examine what they do. And if you drill down on it, you'll find their why is what's driving all of that. It may not be what they truly openly want in their conscious mind, but in their heart of hearts, that's what's driving them. And I help people identify their why and then figure out what kind of a why operating system, which is why, what, and how, they need to put in place so that they're truly living in tune with what matters most to them. How did I do, Paul?
Did very well.
Tell us about what you're up to and what you would hope most to gain as you go forward with Going Pro.
want to get some clarity basically on this whole process. And as you and I talked, Jim, I'm going through a life transition right now because I'm retiring to something as opposed to retiring from something.
Yeah.
I actually did some major research when I was in graduate school about the whole retirement experience. And I like to tell people that the most important word after the word retirement is to. Because if people retire from something and not to something, they're dead within 3 years, according to the statistics.
Yeah.
It's not a
Wow.
good thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm in transition, and the why thing is something that I just happened to come across a number of years ago. And most of you have probably heard of Simon Sinek. If you haven't, he's got about a 17 or 18-minute video about the golden circle. That's the why, the how, and the what.
Mm-hmm.
A dentist doctor in Albuquerque created a system where he could actually help people identify their how, their why, and their what, called the operating system. And I like to liken the why operating system as who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because the why is, in fact, that burning bright light inside of you that's there no matter what. Now, if I ask you what your why is, most of you might say, well, my family, or my career, or the people I work around. Those aren't whys in the context of the who you are. Those are reasons to do your job, but the why is something like to make a contribution, or to find a better way. Or you want to think about Steve Jobs. He wanted to find a better way. Yeah. And his how was to challenge the status quo. So his why is better way, and his how is challenge the status quo. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. It has nothing to do with family, has to do with the inner light within you. Most of you are familiar with Marianne Williamson, who's running for president.
Yeah. Again.
One of her best works is Our Deepest Fear. And I liken our deepest fear to that idea that the burning bright light inside of us is what we need to let shine. And so many of us dim that light because we're afraid that we're going to be so bright around us that other people will be afraid. No, actually, it's important for you to burn brightly so that
Amen.
other people can come out of their darkness, if you will.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me
You bet.
pontificate a little
And
bit.
your business model when it comes to that is you've got on your website the two instruments. One of them is the simple, what is your why, which is like $47. And then the other one's the larger that has the why operating system outlined in it. And that
guess-
was 79 or something like that.
$97. It's for the
97,
whole
yeah.
enchilada. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's a cool way to get into it, because most people, as you said, aren't really clear on what their why is. They know what their rationales are, and they can rationalize all day long, but they're not really nailing what's driving them. And that's why when I started this whole process, I posed one question to everybody. What do you want? Because that's the question behind everything else. What do you want? And the more able you are to articulate well and appropriately what you want, the more likely you are to get it. It's kind of like when you pull out into traffic. If you signal which direction you're going, other cars tend to get out of your way and let you do it. If you don't, they're going to honk their horns and yell at you and show you how their hands work. Right? And they're going to talk about your ancestors and all kinds of things. Right? So knowing and being able to state clearly what you want is huge. It is absolutely huge. And that goes to Jason, it goes to the entire concept of hope. That's sort of at the core of that. And it lives within all the other things that the collective bunch of us here talk about. And I want you to look at this smiling face that's standing there with his arms spread. That's Steve Thomas. Steve, I'd like to welcome you aboard.
Hello,
Say hi
Jim.
to
Finally got
everyone.
in. Sorry.
Yeah, Steve's in the Phoenix, in the valley in where Paradise Valley, is that right?
That's close. Yes.
Yep. And I've known Steve at arm's length for a long time. We've known of each other, but haven't spent much time directly in connection until just recently when I spoke in Arizona at the NSA chapter. And at the end of it, well, first off, I did 3 hours. I was there to do 2 presentations for the NSA chapter and then another hour afterwards to a group of students and aspiring speakers. And so I had my slides and everything all loaded up and I was ready to kill it. And they got there early and my technology wouldn't work with their technology. And so I didn't have any of my AV for the first hour. So I wrote, as many of you saw on a little Post-it note, my speech notes for the first hour and said to the introducer, Rita Hudgens, I said, just don't do the usual thing. You know, Jim's wonderful. Oh my God, the reason water exists and light comes from heaven is Jim Cathcart. And here's a long, long list of all the awards he's gotten. And oh my God, isn't Jim just the most cool guy you ever heard? I said, I don't want any of that. Just say, ladies and gentlemen, you've all heard about today's program. I'm excited about it too. Let's welcome Jim Cathcart. She said, really? I said, yeah, do that. So she did. And then I said, how many of you prior to this morning had no clue that I existed nor who I was? And a third of the room raised their hands, didn't they, Steve?
They did.
Yeah. And I said, okay. So it doesn't matter what my credentials are today. What matters is what I do from now going forward and whether it's valuable to you. And so then I talked with them about the speaking business, the profession, and I described the arc of my career from being a clerk at the Housing Authority to hearing Earl Nightingale to all the other things. Well, at the end of my talk, Steve comes up to me and he says, I'm paraphrasing, I was walking in the other lane right beside you. He said, man, your mentors are my mentors. You know, these people, I knew these people. I thought he was connected to Earl Nightingale. And is it correct that you were actually going to have dinner or a meeting with Earl, but he passed away before you could make it happen?
Yes, that night.
That night.
Wow. Wow.
There goes my mind. Tell us more about that, please.
Well, I began listening to all his tapes like you did, and I began sending him testimonials. So after about 4 or 5 testimonials, he started wondering who I was. And eventually he moved to Paradise Valley, about a block away from where I live.
Wow.
And then Joel Weldon got a hold of him and began working all his cassettes and everything in Arizona. And I did what you did. I'd already copied all his tapes and everything about maybe 20 years before. I knew every one. I memorized them all. And I bought them all from Joel for $5,000 on the first, like maybe 3 seconds. And he couldn't hardly believe it. So then in the end, I found out you did the same thing exactly back in Tulsa. And I became good friends with Earl. And he was everything that I had heard, I had memorized literally. And when I finally met him, he never said the same thing I'd ever heard in my life. The guy was the most innovative, unusual guy ever. And he went in for a heart valve replacement, and the pig heart's valve replacement did not work. And he died that night. And we were meeting chairman of the board of Realty Executives that night for dinner with him. And that was it. So I guess you gave him the memorial address later.
Yeah.
I got mad at his wife, because his widow, because she was going to sue Nightingale Conant. I didn't like that. And so you took over. That was good. Your session at NSA was the best I've seen in 11 years. Absolute, hands down. You were that good.
Wow.
Way
Thank
deeper than any speaker out there right now that I know of. Very, very impressive. That's
Steve,
why I'm on today.
I realize how high that praise is, and it takes my breath away, and thank you for that. But I don't want to focus on me. I want to focus on what you just said and the value it had from your point of view. Now, this is, first off, this is a guy who's a very, very successful personally. He's also highly knowledgeable about our industry, the field of personal achievement and success and motivation and all that. He's known the players, like his relationship with Earl Nightingale. He lives in Arizona, and the chapter that he's been attending over those 11 years he just described is the Arizona chapter. Well, the Arizona chapter is like the mothership of the National Speakers Association. And the speakers that they have had and still have over time are all the A-list top level speakers in the country. Is that right, Steve?
That is correct.
Yeah. And I mean, these are New York Times bestselling authors. These are multi-million TED Talk people, multi-million views. These are the people that are ranked highest in all the various Aren't They Wonderful rankings. And they're brilliant people and good people too, because they're my friends and there's some of you on this call as well. So that's the kind of competition that I had going against me when Steve made that observation. What was it? And again, I'm trying to not take this personally, but take this professionally as an observer. What was it that I did that day that stands out as being that valuable?
Well, you took the bar so high that I realized I was nowhere close to the high bar. And I didn't realize it, but as you went step by step, you were deeper and deeper and deeper. And I began understanding just how hard of a driver and a thinker that you are. And to become an expert, you've got to dig down deep, way deeper than all of us have. And you then begin highlighting all of the trials and tribulations and what it took just to get to your first speaking engagement. And as I realized how Sam Walton outlined he would never hire anybody unless they were from Arkansas, I began understanding your work ethic is beyond anyone that we know. And there are very few people out there like Walton and yourself that are out in this market. And the people that are really succeeding are not doing it very easily. They're actually having to work hard.
Mhm.
And you have literally convinced me I am not working at all compared to what I could do. And it was really a bar topper. And I now believe that at the pinnacle of my career and yours, we really have nothing more than to become really higher experts on an international level than we are.
Thank you, man. That's beautiful. That one of the things that I did in that talk that I got other comments on was I told about, first off, that I started with basically no assets. I didn't have a high IQ. I wasn't an athlete. I didn't have connections, didn't have money, didn't have mentors or encouragers around me. I just had this desire inside and connected with whatever stimuli I could find, first of which was that recording on the radio. But a lot of people said, I'm glad you told us that part, because it makes me think this can be possible for me, because it's so easy to watch a polished speaker on the stage and then say, yeah, easy for you, Lisa. You're eloquent and beautiful and all this stuff. And you've got the Ziegler brand behind you as well. And so, yeah, easy for you, but you don't understand how hard it is on my part. And that was a key factor, I think, in the presentation. And before you got on the air, Steve, Paul Wilson, who's over in Albuquerque, was talking about how he's at a transition point where he's retiring to his next major activity. And he's very specific about delineating retire to versus retire from. because of the life expectancy impact it has. And one of the things that stands out about that is the workload doesn't decrease, it just changes. You know, there's still plenty of work to be done. It's just not the same type of work that it was earlier on. One more item from you, Steve, please. Tell us about your career journey. Just give us a quick little capsule.
Well, like you, I was born with a silver spoon. I was painting house numbers on curbs, door to door, on my hands and knees.
I did
$2
that
a
with
house.
the JCs. Yeah.
Did you do that too?
$5 a house. Pretty
I
good.
bet you did. Oh my God. And people now, I have a former girlfriend, she goes, I think all of your success came from curb painting. I said, curb painting? What does that got to do with anything? She said, you did one thing better than anybody. You learned the law of averages. You learned that every door created another closer leap to the goal. Well, when I got into the land business, I started off with 67 failures, transactions that did not close. And I'm the #1 loser, I think, in Arizona real estate. And after 67 that did not close, Tom Hopkins had a good time bringing me up on the stage saying, well, what happened this week, Steve? Come on up, come on up. And he just embarrassed the hell out of me. And so after every week of losing one after another transaction, I then literally closed one with a big movie star, my first one, and then 3 more that weekend, and I made about 320,000. Well, I had about 480,000 in the bank for curb painting, and the curb painting money 480,000 plus the 320. I finally had 760,000. Well, it was about 23, and you'd almost have to be an idiot.
Pause for a moment. You were 23 years old.
Yes, you'd have to be an idiot to not be able to make it with $760,000. But I was still insecure, so I continued driving a green Volkswagen and lived in a $100 a month efficiency apartment with a popcorn popper and a bed. And with all that money, nobody knew it, but all my friends in real estate began buying big mansions, big Rolls Royces, everything they could do. And I was still driving the Volkswagen. So it was kind of like Jeff Bezos when he said, I haven't made any money. I haven't made any money. I'm broke, this and that. Nobody paid any attention to him at all, did they? And nobody paid any attention to me either. So I began moving in the land business, and I literally began taking over. So I eventually closed 2 million acres, about $1 billion. And I probably have the largest volume in Arizona, not because I'm good, but because I'm the oldest now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
So what I was kind of surprised when I had made 16 million 1 year later was that was the low point of my life. And I had no idea. I had 53,000 acres that I owned personally, and 887 rental houses, 2 mansions, an airplane, 2 kids, married, everything was perfect. And I thought it's never going to get any better than this. And I almost literally got depressed, which had never been ever.
Well, how old were you at that time?
At that time, I was about 40.
Okay.
So I put on Earl Nightingale again, driving. There were no cell phones. And I put on Earl Nightingale, and he said one thing that I really think is the secret to this message today with us is the greatest dissatisfactions in life come when we get what we want, unless we set new and higher worthy goals. And I went, what? With all this, I have to start over and set a whole new set of goals. Well, people ask me later, what did you do? And I actually cannot remember what I did, but I do remember ordering every cassette, every video, everything that Jim Cathcart would have had. I ordered it right then. And that was the secret driver that got me out of the lull. And I think that is probably why your program, bringing that final tweak to our program, even when we're on top, is going to be the secret to everyone's success throughout your entire audience and NSA. It is something that we have to be reminded, and I have to still be reminded of the curb painting. If you don't go out, you don't go to that first door, that law of averages is not going to begin. And that means we have to continue listening and watching the videos, for example. I'm anxious to hear and see what your program is.
What a story.
Yeah.
Let me just ask a question.
Unfortunately, it's true.
Do I have amazing friends or what? I mean, look
Yeah.
around this room and that's a bunch of amazing friends. I'm continually mind boggled by all the depth and wonder within all of you. Our last wisdom parlor, one of the people that popped in was Lee Ellis, Colonel Lee Ellis, who had been a POW in Vietnam during that era for like 6 years behind bars with John McCain and Charlie Plum and Captain Jerry Coffey and all those folks. And he was, here's a guy in his late 70s and he's there taking notes and learning. And he was at the National Speakers Convention in Orlando and he was on stage presenting. He was also in the hallways networking and sitting in the back of the breakout rooms and taking notes. So like Cabot Robert, the founder of the National Speakers Association, said, school's never out for the pro. That's for absolutely certain. By the way, Lee, quick bit of trivia. This Maitland Smith desk that I'm sitting at right now was Tom Hopkins' desk when he lived in Thousand Oaks, California, and he was 2 doors down from me. And he said, Jim, I'm moving back to Arizona. You need a desk? And I said, well, let me look. And I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I bought it on the spot and we put it on rollers and I pushed it down the street to my house. So I've still got it to this day.
I did all the deals with John McCain, by the way, the nuclear plant, largest one in the world, and the CAP canal, Perryville prison, and all those with Deacon Cheney and all the other senators in Arizona. And I'd like to buy Tom Hopkins' wig, by the way.
Yeah. My friend Keith DeGreen from the JCs back in the 1970s moved to Arizona and became a investment specialist. And during that time, he decided he was going to run for the Republican senatorial seat alongside John McCain. He was running against Dennis DeConcini. And so he came to California where I lived at the time. And he said, let's go for a walk. And we went for like a 2-hour walk. And he said, I want you to be finance chairman for my campaign for US Senate. And I said, I don't know anything about that. And he said, no, yeah, but I know you and I trust your ability and your thinking and your heart. And I want you to be my main #1 guy for my campaign. And so I flew to Phoenix and he and I went to John McCain's office and sat down privately with John. And he gave us advice on how to run Keith's campaign. And I decided after all that I wasn't the right guy because I wasn't going to be able to pull it off for him. And that was a major life change kind of a decision anyway. And Keith went on and lost the campaign. But the point was I got some one-to-one private time with John McCain and what an amazing individual he was. Wow. Wow. So, but among all of us, we've touched some serious history. Lisa Marie, we haven't heard your lovely tones. Speak to us, bring us up to date. Tell us how can we be helpful to you and what do you have that you could share with the rest of us at this point?
Well, what I'm going to share today is, and some people have heard this before, I set out to do one thing. I set out to become, and I am a Ziegler Legacy trainer, and I love training and I love workshops and I love groups, but I believe success breeds success. You heard, you sell one house, you sell 2, 3, 4, then they all start coming. So I do believe that success breeds success. And just over the course of time, people have come up to me and said, hey, I'm interested in your coaching program. And I remember last fall thinking, gee, I've never coached anybody one-on-one. A year ago, I think it was October. And now I have more one-on-one coaching than anything. However, I still do workshops and training for company. But last night, I gave my legacy talk, a keynote talk for 40 minutes. And the audience was absolutely phenomenal. When I finished, I got a nice round of applause, and the compliments, I felt like I was in cloud nine and had to pull myself down. Where did you learn to speak? And I really could not give Ziegler the credit. I was, with Dale Carnegie in the early 90s, and I believe that's really where I got my technique and my style. But people were saying, oh, I love your voice. Jim Cathcart's always said you need to do voiceover work. I've always thought people said I had a Southern accent. Where did you learn to pause? Where did you learn to repeat what you just said? What I was just like, wow, wasn't the questions I thought they were going to be asking me, but I stood there and smiled and just kind of took it all in and came home, and I thought, okay, tomorrow's a new day. We got to start over and go for it. And I've also found I've done a lot of my website, my monthly newsletter, but I'm personable. I'm one-on-one. I want to stand or sit and look at somebody face to face in the eye, sit up, have a conversation. Yes, I can get on the phone, but I enjoy getting in my car, getting dressed, putting on color. I've told you that before. It's my hat, Patricia Fritz hat, my color.
Yep.
Sitting in front of somebody, talking to them, sharing with them, giving them a piece of value and leaving and just seeing where things go. So I don't really need any help right now. I'm really busy. I'm starting St. Jude Leadership Society next week. It'll be year number 5, and my kids have raised over $2 million to date for St. Jude, 16 to 18-year-old high school students. So I'm really proud of that.
Wow. She's the leader of the youth leaders for the St. Jude organization. And St. Jude, I had never been there, and I was in Memphis, and this is our first real get together. I knew Lisa through the work that she had been doing with Don Hudson, speaker. And so I was in Memphis doing some things for Don, and Lisa said, I'd like to take you and show you St. Jude. And so we went over there, and she's a insider's insider. And so she took me through the place, and we saw the patients, and we saw the doctors, and we saw the chapel and the whole organization. And wow. I mean, no wonder people are so moved by what they're doing there, because it really, really matters. And Lisa goes back even to connections with Danny Thomas and the original founding of St. Jude. So thank you for that again. And thank you for dropping me by Gibson Guitars so I could tour their factory too. That was awesome. Robin, I got to go in and play some the BB King, what's the name of his, Josephine, some guitars like that, and go on the production floor and see the people strumming a guitar for the first time as it comes out of production. That was pretty awesome. And
I've been in the Martin factory before. It's cool.
Yeah, me too. My son took me on, and Martin Guitars is Martin's the first one to come up with the dreadnought, that shape right there. And that's a Gibson, but Martin was the first to come up with that shape. And that's the most popular acoustic guitar shape in the world. And Martin's factory is in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And if you remember the song, Take the Load Off Annie, which is called The Weight, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead, just needed a place I could lay my head. And that's talking about going into Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And it was Robbie Robertson who wrote that song. He was talking about going to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and he was there for the Martin Guitar Factory. And my son took me there as a Father's Day gift several years ago. And then we stayed at the Four Seasons in Philadelphia. Awesome. What a great
Cool.
experience.
You know, I interviewed Robbie and Levon Helm and the whole guys in the band and was at their studio in Woodstock for my Buddy Holly documentary. Wow. Yeah. How cool is that? Levon Helm was smoking a joint right there in the studio right before they started playing. And we had to wait for him to finish in order to roll cameras. Hello. Talking about 60s rock and roll, man. That was
Man.
a trip. Yeah, Robbie was a cool guy. Both, and Levon as well.
Yeah. Robbie
Yeah.
just passed away recently. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, on the day that he passed away, I was performing here out in Dripping Springs, where you've been, Robin, at Hudson's on Mercer Street. And
Yep.
the first song I did was The Wait. And then I did The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, which
Yep.
is another of his songs.
Yep.
And that's an old
Written a
folk.
lot of great ones.
That's one you wouldn't expect to be one of his. And I'll happily play you a piece of that if you guys want me to. But we're here for the bigger purpose of helping you go further in your own expert's journey. Could I do a round the room recap and just have you point out briefly the one or two thoughts you picked up today, or impressions? It doesn't have to be a quote, just an impression or something you got from this gathering today that stuck. Brian, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I will. I like what Paul said about retiring from versus retiring to. And then when Steve talked about when you reach a goal, then going to the next one, so both of those to me was like, wherever you're at, what are you doing next? And then I started thinking about how I've been helping Janelle. And I thought, like, the campaign, I tweaked and did these things and it was crickets, no one buying. And so it made me think of Steve there with 67 losses. So I'm like, I got one down, maybe hopefully less than 66 to go, but
There you go. And Jason's got that bat behind him. You should get one of those. Take one more swing. Yep. That's awesome. Awesome. Jason, how about you? What stuck today?
I just really love like the driving home more of the, like, what do you want? Just the clarity that's like kind of come back, Steve was talking about, like, when you kind of realize that you're at an evolution and you can either stay here or you could keep reaching up. And I feel like that's a lot of what I've been going through in shedding off a lot of the takers out of my life, and
Yeah.
starting to realize that, like, I'm looking for answers, that I already know. And it's kind of like, flipping that back on now and realizing, like, oh, hey, dude, you're kind of the one that's the problem. So it's just kind of another one of hearing somebody that, it has, because I would say I would challenge Steve in the failing realm myself, that of beating my head against the wall, and then finally kind of waking up to, like, oh, wait a minute, like, I just wasn't clear on what I wanted, and this is why I was always surrounded by takers, and so it's just hearing that message again, just another reminder. It's great stuff. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
goes back to the old Pogo quote, the comic strip Pogo. We have met the enemy and he is us. Paul, how about you? What ideas or thoughts have stuck with you today?
Well, I like what Jason said about takers. There's givers and receivers, same people, and there are takers who suck.
Yeah, they do.
And the impression I got from all of you sharing was the word abundance, and the idea of abundance, sharing with others, because you are successful and you are abundantly successful and abundantly wanting to give to others. There have been a number of opportunities on this call about, I'd like to do something for you, please.
Mhm.
And I like to be in a group like that.
Dynamite. Thank you. Steve, how about you?
Well, I'm excited about one thing. I just realized after all of these names and everything that you mentioned in your seminar. You brought all the names that I had forgotten about. And then I thought about, for example, in this call, Tommy Triplehorn, all the rock stars all over Tulsa, Sanford Clark, and I guess probably 100 others that we all know, and all the motivational speakers and all the people that we know, Hopkins, the desk you're sitting on. What we're really able to do is now harness the flock. And what I think I'm going to do as a result of this phone call is I'm going to take the 600,000 parcels of land that I have and narrow it down to the Pareto principle, which would be the top 20% that own all the land.
Mhm.
Well, the top 20%, as you know, the 80-20 formula, own the whole town, and the 20% would only be 59 people. But if I increased it to 100 people and concentrated all my efforts, just like, for example, Jim, you may concentrate all your efforts on all the people that you know right now, including me, that will buy your whole system and your whole program. You don't even have to prospect any further. You've already got the group now. We don't have to continue to prospect now that we're on top. It's now time to turn back and get the people that we already know about. So the people I already know are the big landowners, are probably the ones that are going to be my last hurrah. The next 5 years will be everybody from Bill Gates to Ted Turner, right on down the line. So this group is going to be really isolated down to 87 people or 50 people. And that will be what I will spend the rest of my life on, 50 to 100 people. And I don't need any more, and neither do we.
Awesome. Wow. And that's, somebody said that the other day. Oh, I was Jeff Hazlett. He said, everybody you need to know, he was talking to a group like us, everybody you need to know to achieve 100% of what you dream to achieve, you already know.
Yes.
So think of that, think about that, Robin and Trigger, when you're thinking about the challenges that we've been talking about, you already know the people you need to know. It's just a matter of figuring out, how can I, going back to Ziegler, help them get what they want? Well, item one, what do they want? And what will they value? And how can I help them get that? Forgetting about myself for the moment, how can I get that for them? And then, build on that from there.
Also,
Robin,
we
how
could
about you?
probably-
What'd you pick
we
up
could
today?
also probably
Oh, I'm
begin
sorry,
thinking,
Steve. Go ahead.
thinking small. We could probably start thinking small. My biggest, huge volume in my whole career was only 5 transactions. And the largest volume before that was with a compact computer with only, I think it was 80 kilobytes of storage of hard drive. And that meant, what is that, 100 people, 200 people in the hard drive?
It's 4
And
pieces of paper.
I made a
Yeah.
fortune. Instead of going after everybody, it was a little tiny group. And the group that you know right now are going to be the secret to everyone's success. Don't you think?
It's certainly been my experience. Yeah. And the people you meet through them, sometimes it's not the person, but at our level collectively, we're 1 degree of separation from anybody we need to know or want to know. I was one time, I've shared this before, but one time I was on a hike out in California, and a woman on our hike, at the end of it, we'd gone about 6 miles and got back to the cars, and we were going to coffee, and she said, anyone need a ride? And I said, yeah, I need a ride. And she said, okay, hop in. And she had an Aston Martin. Thank you. And so we rode in her James Bond car back to coffee. And I said, so what do you do? She said, I work for the guy that does that. And she pointed at my baseball cap. And my baseball cap said Top Gun on it. And I'd gotten that at a conference where that was the theme, because that was, during that time, the movie was popular. And so I had this Top Gun hat and I was hiking in it. And she said, my boss does that. I work for that guy. And I said, for what, in the Navy? She said, no, Tom Cruise.
Wow.
Hello. She was the personal manager, managing the properties and the personal business of Tom Cruise. Holy smokes. I mean, we're that close to the people that are known in every community in the entire world. And that literally is true. I mean, certainly is for giants like Steve, you know, and for budding giants like many of the rest of us, we're still way closer than we usually realize we are. So let me go to you, Trigger. Trigger, make some observations about today. What'd you get?
Well, Brian stole both of mine. Literally, word for word, Brian. I was like sitting there going, really? Seriously? You're going to go there? So, and I could see Robin doing the same thing, I think, right, Robin? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that amazing idea of, again, retiring is not even in my mindset, but the idea of just the continuing journey, continuing going on. And that's always been my mindset. So I just love hearing that whole concept. And again, Jim, kind of what you're touching on right now, I'm going to add that in because it would be a great discussion one time for a wisdom parlor or one of these Ask Jim's time to talk about your 1 degree of separation because you already know the right people in the room, but you may not be asking the right question. You may not be offering the right service to them. You may not be listening well enough. What is it that's keeping you? Let's all ask each other, what's keeping us right here from making that step of connection because it's already sitting in the room? That might be a really cool discussion.
That's a very cool idea. Robin, how about you? What did you pick up today?
Well, I don't like Brian anymore, so that's the first thing. No, I totally agree. Paul, I loved your thought of from to because the mindset of how you think about where you're going or where you're coming from totally changes everything. And I loved that. And then Steve, your curb mentality. I mean, that's a great analogy. That's so simple. And the fact that you saved $480,000 in that process at your age, dude, you're brilliant. Oh my gosh. Or you're really lacking in something else because you didn't want to spend any money. I don't know what it is, but I loved it. And then Jason, I love your heart. I love your story. I love what's going on. And I love Lisa's smile and her confidence and what's going on. And Jim, you're the definite rock star. And Brian, you and I, buddy, we're coming. We're coming. We're getting there. We're getting there. So great day today, guys.
Good.
Oh, Trigger, you too. Triggs.
Can you give us, on a more serious note, can you give us an update on Elizabeth?
Yes, she had a mammogram and sonogram last week, and they did find what she thought was possibly more cancer. They're not sure. They want her to go get some further testing. Jason, this is her second round with this breast cancer, but it's right there on the suture area where we think it could be skin tissue, scar tissue. And we've talked with some of our spiritual guidance folks, and they're praying for us and believing that it's actually skin tissue or scar tissue. But we're starting into that next journey to figure all that out. So again, it's been another setback a little bit, but we're being confident and praying that the Lord's going to guide us in all of that. So thank you for asking.
Got the hearts of this group going out to you as well, and to Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
My wife's a champ. She's doing her due diligence. She's working it. She's working out. She's in a lot of ways you wouldn't know, but you know, Jason, as you can relate, there's some days that are hard and scary and things like that. So we're just forging ahead. But thank you.
If she's up to it, both of you come to Austin soon, and let's have dinner.
Okay.
Spend some quality time. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Lisa Marie, comment, observations?
Yes, observation. I think it's also very important to know your why in life, your purpose, your passion. And I believe we find that by listening to our heart and what makes our heart sing. Yep.
Dynamite. Well, thank you. Okay, I'm going to close with a piece of a tune. All right. This is going back to Robbie Robertson, right? And it was the one he wrote about the Civil War. Virgil Kane is my name, and I drove on the Danville train till Stoneman's cavalry came and they tore up the tracks again. It was the winter of '65. We were hungry, just barely alive. By May the 10th, Richmond it fell. It was a time I remember oh so well. The night they drove in Dixie town, all the bells were ringing tonight. They drove old Dixie down, and all the people were singing. They went na 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 na.
Wow.
Folks, this was great fun. Thank you so much.
True story. That was my dad's 8-track tape. It burned in my mind. Thank you very much, Jim, for bringing that back.
All right, see you next week. Take care. Thanks.
That was
for being with
amazing.
us. I'll
Bye,
post
guys.
You're amazing, Jim.
Facebook.
Hey, Robin, reach out. We got to connect, buddy.